Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Bennett, host of the Ramble, heard here and seen here on GabNet, Tuesday through Fridays, live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and I got some big news for you. Our program has moved its live video from Facebook Live to YouTube Live. After extensive tests in our GabNet laboratories of at least 10 minutes, our mind was made up and we've come to the conclusion that YouTube is superior not only in video quality, but audio as well. And then there's the ease of watching it. Here's what you do. Simply point your browser to youtube.com/Bolo Bennett /live. That's youtube.com/Bolo Bennett, BOLOBENNETT /live, and you're there. The player is waiting, and you do nothing, and when the show begins, so does the player. Couldn't be simpler. In fact, tag that page as a permanent tab on your browser, and you're ready to go. And if all of this is too vexing for you, well, just go to gabnet.net near showtime, and the player in the middle of the page will start to play when we're on. We're thrilled with the new quality our move has provided, and while you're there, would you do me a favor and please subscribe to our channel? No, I beg you to. Hey, listen to me, I'm groveling, okay? I know, it's pathetic. I'm sorry, I'm debasing myself, and I really shouldn't be. Please. Hi, everybody. This is Alex Bennett asking you the musical question. What are you doing every Tuesday through Friday night at 10 o'clock Eastern Time? Well, that's when we're live with The Ramble. And The Ramble is a program of deep, thoughtful discussion, sometimes just wacky and goofy. It's always fun, it's always exciting, it's always stimulating. It's a lot of people just talking with each other. Yes, we call them a citizen panel. And we have like upwards to 9-10 people. Sometimes we call it a full house, sometimes we call it a royal flush, and beyond that, just call it sheer madness. Anyway, I'd like you to join me each and every Tuesday through Friday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time until midnight for The Ramble. Right here on GabNet. Now more than ever, talk like you've never heard it before.
GabNet's creator and founder, Alex Bennett, is always looking for ways to stay on the cutting edge. He first revolutionized commercial radio. He built a career on being one of the first to speak to the new generation of the 60s. Then he reinvented himself on morning drive radio, where he was the first to use a live studio audience and guest comedians each morning. Another ratings winner. Next, Alex took off for outer space as he brought his unique perspective on politics and news to the satellites. Always a pioneer, his next stop was to create a unique format that no one else had ever done, with citizen panels on the internet. What's next? Is there any place left to innovate? Are there any stones left unturned? Introducing GabNet Live on Roku. That's right, GabNet Live on Roku. No lies, because you can't lie on the internet. GabNet is now available on your TV. You can listen to GabNet's 24/7 network stream, or browse your favorite GabNet shows from the archives, just like on gabnet.net. But that's not all. You can also watch video of Alex's archived live stream TV programs, as well as his televised Friday Night Ramble. It's all there for you, and all you have to do is turn on your Roku device, search the Roku store for GabNet Live, and add the channel to your lineup. Then sit back and enjoy. It's GabNet Live on Roku. Thanks, Alex. Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey, Hey everybody, how are you? It's Alex. We're here until midnight Eastern Daylight Time with a little thing we like to call the Ramble, and every 3 weeks we get together with somebody because we really like him a lot, and he's really smart and he has a lot to say. Out to San Francisco, ladies and gentlemen, and the familiar wizened face, as he describes it, of Will Durst. Hello, William.
Hi, and this is Eloise, and she says hi.
Yes, is that your favorite?
No, she's the one who likes to sit on laps, though.
Oh, I see. Okay.
She's not a big fan of laps.
Not a big fan of laps, I see. Okay, so she's okay. So how you doing?
Try to keep up, man. I mean, every week I'm doing a little show.
You know, you always say a little show, and I just think for showbiz purposes, you should say, I'm doing a very big show.
Yeah, I'm not going for that audience.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
I'm going for the understated audience. Yeah, so I'm doing my little show, and it's called Durst Case Scenario Midterm Madness. I updated it, and because it's significantly different than it was when I started, and that's because I have to incorporate new material every week. Material, not just musings, but jokes that fit into the rhythm of the rest of the show. So they have to be fully realized jokes, which means that it's hard to insert something, like it's coming out of the half shell, like Venus. I'm not Botticelli. I think people know this.
This is a time for you where it is just rife with material. By the way, if I pat my eye every now and then, folks, it's because I have just horrible allergies today, and my
no.
Oh yeah, I've been having them for the last couple of days. I don't know why. I don't know what I'm allergic to. Anyway, here's the thing: you are living in very good times for you.
But the hard part is keeping up, and also the attention span, because things happen so quickly. People come and go so quickly around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's tough because my Anthony Scaramucci stuff, that was 10 days. 10 days he was in office.
Right. So. And you never mention him again, or do you?
No, I can't. People don't remember him. I'm doing a joke. I'm doing the joke about Bowling Green, and I refuse to take it out of my act. I talk about when Kellyanne Conway went on TV and intimated that the Obama surveillance of Trump Tower might have been accomplished through the microwave oven. Yes, it was the evil microwave oven in league with the toaster. And these are the same kitchen appliances responsible for the tragedy in Bowling Green.
Can I ask you a question that makes me
People
sound...
don't remember Bowling Green.
Let me ask you a question that will make me sound politically stupid. And I follow this stuff. Is Kellyanne Conway still hired by the Trump administration?
Yeah, she's a member of the
it's
staff.
funny because you don't used to hear from her every other minute.
Right.
Now, occasionally she winds up on a Sunday program or something like that, or she makes a comment, but it's nothing like before. It's like she's almost gone under the radar.
Well, she became the object of scorn and derision. Because there were like 3 things in a row. And one was alternative facts. She was the one who coined the term alternative facts when she meant we're just lying and you should believe our lies. And it became pretty obvious. And then she had the moment when she said that Obama surveillance might have been accomplished through the microwave oven. And then there was a third one, and I can't remember that. But it was like boom, boom, boom. And people said, maybe you should slow down a bit. So I think she's been on the back burner.
I got to tell you something about Kellyanne Conway, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm maybe too forgiving of her. But I feel that she was doing her job.
Not I.
Not you. Because I just felt she was doing her job, and she was doing it to the best of her ability, given really horrible circumstances. All right? You don't agree?
No, I think she's emblematic of her principles, which are none. Hollow. She's a husk of a woman. She looks like she was put together. She was assembled out of defective IKEA parts and then flash frozen for optimum brittleness. That's what I think of her. She's a husk, and I've met her a couple of times.
You have. What's she like in person?
Exactly. There is no difference.
Really, no difference.
No difference at all. There's no warmth. There's no courtesy. There's no personal contact. It's all just her promoting herself. I met her twice, both times. Yeah.
Wow. Because usually, people you hate, right, publicly, you meet them and they're charming and they're terrific and you like them. Like, for instance, I'll give you a good example. Mike Huckabee is a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Really, really nice guy. I really enjoyed him.
Minister and a former governor. So he has that charm thing down.
Yeah, but I mean, he was just terrific. I really enjoyed it.
It's organic.
Yeah. You know? Now, I'll tell you who I hated. Just couldn't stand.
When you met?
Yeah. Newt Gingrich.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's nothing humorous about this guy. He has no sense of humor whatsoever.
Yeah, well, his eyes are on the prize, which is all about promoting Newt Gingrich. You know?
Yeah.
There's no room for humor.
Yeah, I mean, I had him on twice. And the first time I was very nice to him because I wanted to get him on a second time. I mean, when I say nice to him, there's a way of confronting people and there's a way of confronting people. And there's a way of confronting them where they go run, and that's not good if you're doing an interview because you're trying to lull them into a sense of security. Right?
Or otherwise.
Now, I always hated the way a Geraldo did an interview or somebody like that who was always in your face, And so the minute you started asking that first nasty question, they tightened up, right? What you want to do is get them to relax and feel comfortable in your presence. And then you hit them wacko with the question, right? And Gingrich, I was nice to the first time, so he would come back a second time. And sure enough, he came back a second time. And I'm interviewing him, and I think I got him good. I said to him, are you a religious man? He said, oh, yes. I said, go to church on Sunday? Oh, yes, I go to church on Sunday. I said, then how come you work on the Lord's Day? He said, what do you mean? I said, you're on all those talk shows. But I go to church first. That doesn't matter. It's the Lord's Day. It's the day of rest. I said, what's his name from New York can do it on Sunday because he takes Saturday off. And he didn't have an answer for me. He did not have an answer. That cat really does like to be on the lap and in your face.
Yes, she's showing off her tail.
Or her ass. Cats love to show off their ass and rub it in your face.
Well, it's they have a clean butt and they're very proud of it. And who else did I meet? People meet like who's the big mouthed Republican woman that Bill Maher actually enjoys having on his show, and I thought that was strange bedfellows.
Yeah. What's her name? The one who writes all the books in this relationship.
Coulter. Yeah. So there are. I mean, you look at Mary Madeline and James Carville, and they got married.
There must be something about Mary Madeline. Either she gives the world's greatest blowjob, or there's something about her intellectually that he admires. I
always found her intellectually honest about her beliefs.
Yeah.
Her beliefs were pretty straightforward, and the whole conservative movement, and you got to bring yourselves up by your bootstraps and stuff like that.
But we always heard about movie stars who we said would never last because they were so different and they had marriages that went on forever.
Yeah. sometimes opposites do attract.
Well, they make life interesting. I mean, do you and Debbie get along so well that you don't argue and you don't have differences of opinion on things?
Pretty much, especially after 37 years, you kind of figure it out. But that's also because of my retiring personality. I don't care. I don't care. I don't understand people who do care. I don't care.
I was watching the other night. Let me take a little side trip here. I was watching Three Still Standing.
Oh, cool!
The film with you and Bubbles
and Johnny Steele.
And you got a lot of time on that thing because you were the most interesting to talk to. You gave long, interesting answers about the business, and you were, and whatever.
Mr. Philosophy, yeah.
I felt they gave Bubbles less time because Bubbles is kind of to the point, and what you see is what you get,
Bubbles speaks in epigrams too. He doesn't speak, and he doesn't. Everything is just a knee-jerk joke to him, and they could never get him to open up. That's my theory.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also because his humor is, even when he does it here, although when we talk, it's more of a discussion and we just enjoy each other's conversation. But, people don't understand that he has one-line jokes like butter, and you have to know what he's saying, But
it's over, buddy.
But it's on Netflix now, Or is it on Netflix or Amazon? And Netflix.
Amazon Prime.
Huh? Amazon Prime. Yeah. And so if you have Amazon Prime, folks, and who doesn't because you want your packages delivered.
Free shipping, yeah.
Yeah. You can see it. It's called Three Still Standing, and two of the three are regulars on this program. So
I can't tell if it's a good movie because I'm too close to it, but it's pretty. It's really pretty.
I can
tell you that.
It's well crafted. Yeah, yeah. My question would be, did you like? It was nice to get the publicity. It was nice to get the attention. But did it feel good to you about getting the idea that, well, here are three losers who are still standing?
Well, that's what Johnny's major complaint was. Me, it was just seeing me like in situ. It was kind of like a frozen moment in time of me just trying to earn a living. So I was totally fine with that. But Johnny had some problems because of the editing. It shows him doing an old folks home, and it looks kind of desperate. And he's doing a lot of corporates, and he's doing a lot of really good gigs. So he was worried that it made him look, but it did really show when he and his wife Allison try to put together the one-man show that he's doing tomorrow, the next day. So I thought that was illustrative of the Johnny that we all know and love.
Yeah. Or that you love. I don't love Johnny. But for obvious reasons years ago. But I just feel that it's something that our audience should go watch. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's, if you get Amazon Prime, it's free with the shipping. Yeah. It's a good film. Good film.
The problem was that year.
I'm even in it. I'm in it.
Yeah, you introduced me.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem was that year. Well, I thought they should have talked to you more.
They never got a hold of me.
Yeah, that was a problem of geography, I think.
Yeah.
Because I thought I don't think that you were the major reason for comedy to have the huge crest of the wave, of the comedy wave, but you were a major reason why the Bay Area became that kind of breeding ground.
I was part of the mix that made it happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were part of the zeitgeist, but you were a huge part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And you also taught comics because we wouldn't go on for 5 or 10 minutes. You would have us on for 3 hours. We were co-hosts.
Yeah.
So we learned the rhythm of radio, and so many of the comics that you mentored on that show went on to have radio careers. I mean, it's because you taught us how to do it. You know, you have to pace yourself, and if the other guy gets a laugh, that's fine because the show is funny. I mean, there was so much that we learned. I mean, you never learn when you go on one of these morning shows and you do 10 minutes and one guy's laughing at everything. You know, I mean, you don't learn anything. And you promoted the, because you think when you started, what was it, 80, 81, 82?
Mm-hmm.
In the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I mean, you caught the crest of the comedy wave and you used bellows to blow it up. I mean, Bay Area.
Yeah, but you know what I did wasn't by design. That's the interesting part about it. It happened all by accident. I mean, one thing I always had this theory in broadcasting that you let things evolve. You don't sit down and say, tomorrow we're going to do comedy, you know.
Right.
You let things evolve, and one thing led to another, and it wound up being that. Okay, and so if
you reflected the time,
I was the zeitgeist. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I reflected the time.
Cable had discovered comedy, because cable was voracious for content, and then they discovered that you didn't have to pay music fees. You didn't have to pay writers because comics were self-contained. So that's why they loved comedy.
Well, there was an old joke when A Night at the Improv was on A&E that the two most predominant figures on A&E at that time were Bud Freeman and Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, it was the comedy and Nazi channel. It was.
But yeah, I mean, I'd like to think I had something to do with it. I just, you know, I felt I could have probably contributed a lot to that documentary. But, you know, I'm in it for a brief 5 seconds, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some comics in the Bay Area who were pissed about, you know, they're not the only three still standing, but we're the only three.
Yeah, there's always Perry Kurtz,
who I hear was on.
No, yeah, but wait a minute. Hold on a second.
Jimmy Fallon last night?
No. You're James Corden.
He was on Corden?
Yeah. Here's a couple of nights ago. Here's what happened.
Yeah.
So he sends me this thing through Messenger, for Facebook Messenger. You know, Perry Kurtz on James Corden, and I'm going, either Perry Kurtz got really good or he's lying to us. And it turns out he was lying to us.
Oh, really?
What it was a thing where they take people supposedly out of the audience and they come in with some kind of talent. And so that's what he was doing. That was his thing.
Oh, it was.
It wasn't like he did stand-up or anything like that, or ladies and gentlemen, and now here's Perry Kurtz. If you get a chance, go on YouTube. He's got it up there. Perry Kurtz on James Corden, or on, yeah.
Poor baby.
Poor baby. Yeah. By the way, when we talk about Perry Kurtz, I think easily the worst comic in America. I don't think I'm making any.
Fair.
I'm making.
That's not fair.
Huh?
I've seen many other worst comics.
When I was working in Florida, rather, in Miami for that 3 months that I was down there, some guy owned a comedy club and said, "Oh, we got actors from the Bay Area." Yeah. I said, "Oh, who's coming in?" He said, "Perry Kurtz is headlining." I said, "What?"
Headlining?
I said, "Headlining? Perry Kurtz?" And he said, "Yeah. He says he sent us all his stuff. Boy, it looks like he's hot." And they hired him, and with one night they fired him. They said it was terrible. It was. He says, "We should have listened to you, Alex." I mean, I wasn't trying to kill Perry getting a job, so I didn't tell him don't hire him. But I went, Perry fucking Kurtz. You know.
But there, for the grace of God, go you or I.
Well, I mean, I hate to put down other comics, but my greatest revelation, I think, in life was when my wife and I, Susan at the time, We're driving through the south of France because we were on vacation. And I get a call, and I listen. I go, And I hang up, and she said, "What was that?" I said, "That was California. They just wanted to tell me that Doug Ferrari won the comedy competition." And so we continued driving down the Côte d'Azur, whatever, you know. And all of a sudden, almost together at the same time, about 20 minutes later, we look at each other and go, "Doug Ferrari?"
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Well, you won the comedy competition, didn't you?
Yeah, the year before, I think.
Yeah.
But so that was 84. And from what I was led to believe, was the huge Kabuki stage is where they had the finals.
Yeah.
And Pitta was expected to win, and he had a good set. And then Ferrari used the whole stage, ran around and used the whole stage, and some judges found that. Of course, it's all so subjective.
Comedy is not a competition, folks. You know, whoever.
But I always liked the comedy competition because for that 3-week period, I would live, breathe, and eat.
It helped you. Act. It did help you improve your act.
I would focus. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a boot camp.
It was.
Yeah. Let's get back to the world at large. What do you see now? This whole gun thing. You know, I mean, I am sick of it. They just don't do anything. How many? Do you know that there have been since?
This is not the time to politicize.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry about that. I shouldn't.
Like
right.
I'm not sure
right.
we should actually even be talking about.
When can we start talking about it? Wait a
After
minute. Hold on a second. What time is it? Wait, we got 3 seconds.
Sending our thoughts and prayers.
We got 3 seconds. We can start talking about it. Ever since Newtown, where was it? The thing, Connecticut, yeah. Newtown. Yeah. Do you know there have been 400 shootings in schools? It was in the New York Times. They had them all listed. I mean, since Newtown.
Some of those are accidental firings. Not all of those were active shooters. You know?
Really? You think?
Yeah.
Yeah. But still,
it's not somebody coming in.
It's gun related. Okay, yeah. It's access to guns, whether it's some kid who brought one to school to show his friends and it accidentally went off and killed a kid,
right?
Or whether it was some guy who goes in with an AK-47 and wipes out his class. But how many more of these have to happen before these morally bankrupt Republicans say we got to do something about this? They're always blaming the individual, never the fact that the guns were put in the hands of that individual by a society that allowed it.
Well, also, I mean, you look at, if you want to talk about the hypocrisy, I mean, the first thing they talk about is mental health, and then you ask them if they supported the president when he got rid of the ruling that made it harder for mentally ill people to buy guns. Do they support that? Well, yeah, I support that. Well, you said it was mental, so they're just diverting. It's reaching a point of diminishing returns, though. You know, so I think it's going to take numbers. That's the only way to sway Congress, is by having commensurate numbers, because they know how many people. You know, Hillary Clinton's going to take my gun. You know, no, she's not. But that involves a certain amount of education. We're talking about people who never graduated from high school, so it's hard for them to figure out that Hillary Clinton doesn't want to take their gun. But and if the kids can get the numbers, you know, if the kids go to the town halls and they make the congressman, they put them on the spot and demand a yes or a no on gun control, and then if they don't like the answer, they get up en masse and walk out. They could turn this thing around.
The kids down in Florida are going to Washington, and they're going to protest. And I think that's going to be a very interesting protest, because here you have people who've been shot upon saying, okay, something's got to be done about this. But I just don't know how a society can protect guns but not kids. You know, I think kids would come first, at least.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
You know, I mean,
don't protect guns, protect kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, don't touch my guns, don't touch my guns. What about the kids? Screw the kids. We want our guns.
Yeah, let them have a gun.
And just the national sickness. There is a national sickness we have about guns. It exists nowhere else in the world. Not even ISIS feels this way about guns. You know? I mean, it's just insane.
Well, the NRA's answer to school shootings is less schools.
And now, of course, here's what I figure. Republicans hate old people and kids. That's really what it is. Because now they figure, gee, how are we going to pay for that tax thing? Oh, well, maybe we could cut back on Medicare and Social Security. Fuck you. You start doing that, I'm strapping a bomb to my body and I'm going down to Washington.
There are so many fuck yous to these people. There are so many. We have to worry about the deficit. Fuck you. You didn't care about the deficit when you gave yourself this huge tax cut for the rich. Fuck you. Well, maybe he's not a moral person. Fuck you. You didn't care when the president had a porn star payoff? You didn't care about a porn star payoff? Fuck you. You never get to talk about that issue again.
How about a Playmate payoff?
Yes.
You know,
yes.
They all have to start with P's, by the way. Playmate payoff, porn star payoff. Yeah.
It's an alliterative nightmare.
I mean, and then on top of that, this guy is like every Christian's nightmare.
Yeah.
Cheats on his wife.
Don't care.
He didn't
evangelicals, we'll give him a mulligan. Yeah. Hashtag me too.
Oh man, it's insane. It is just insane. And the fact that they are trying to go after Social Security and Medicare and whatever.
Oh, because we got to bring our deficits down.
You know, my ex-wife, Ronnie, put it best when she said, they always talk about these as entitlements, and she says they should be considered earned benefits. Because really that's what you did. You had to work in order to get them. You know, money was taken out of your paycheck in order to take care of it. We can't help it if the government stole the Social Security money to pay for wars.
Yeah, if they went on a drunken bender in Vegas and lost all their money. Yeah.
And aren't these Republicans the guys who always yell when the Democrats are in office, oh, we're overspending, we've got a deficit, and all of a sudden they get in office and they give away, what, $1.3 trillion in tax breaks to basically rich people?
Yeah,
I mean,
so rich people could have more money.
This is just, it's you couldn't write this kind of dystopian nightmare.
No, and the Democrats always have to clean up the mess. They always have to, we have to scale back, but no.
Yeah, what I love about the Democrats,
I'm tired of this shit. It's time to lose the mandolin music and download some Metallica and go to war with these assholes.
The Democrats are like dogs who, when you throw the ball, they go chase it, and then when you don't throw the ball but you pretend to, they still go chase it. The Democrats are that way. The Democrats go, we want to be president. We want to be in power. We want to be in power. Okay, we're in power now. Wait a minute, we've got all these problems the Republicans created. Now we've got to solve it. And then, after they're in office, the next time the Republicans run and see, they had a deficit. See, they did this wrong. Blah, blah, blah. The Democrats didn't do anything. They inherited all that crap.
People have short memories.
Yeah, I mean, we live in just, boy, it's a wonderful world for Will Durst, political comic, who has, who last week was very, very sick, so sick he couldn't do this show. But you still did your show that night, right?
Yeah, I did.
Show must go on.
Last Tuesday.
Did you get through it okay?
It was staggering near the end. It's 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think last week it was 85. I might have skipped a couple of parts.
Yeah. Well, you insist on doing a one-man show, so that's your cross to bear.
Yeah, it's I don't have to split the money.
What? Okay, one last thing. What do you think's the biggest problem we got going on right now?
Oh, I don't know. Trump. I think getting him out. Here's my prediction. In November,
yeah,
if the election is fair, the Democrats will take the House. If the election isn't fair, hello, New Zealand.
You're looking for a place to live, huh?
Yeah, if this election isn't fair and the Democrats don't take the House, because traditionally that's always been the way, and we've seen it in special elections, and that's just the way it's going. And that would be the first real proof that a totalitarian government was about to take over and deny us any rights.
Yes,
because they might have meddled in the last election, and if there's proof that they're going to meddle in the next election, then in 2020 they won't give a shit.
Well, I just love the fact that
95% of the electoral vote.
Trump said they're in Russia. They're laughing at us. You bet.
Yeah,
they
are.
You bet your life they are, but for not the reasons you think, asshole. Hey, Will Durst, always great talking to you. There's nothing like talking to a Will Durst or any other kind of Durst.
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
No. It's a unique experience. And it's always fun because you make it sound like a conversation, which is the way I always heard it.
That's what it is. And that's what it is, not an interview. Yeah, anyway, hey, listen, my best to Deborah. And
you got it.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks, okay?
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Will Durst.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GABNET, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey, everybody, that's Will Durst. I love Will. I love having him on, and he will be on with us again in a couple of weeks. He does it about every 3 weeks. Tomorrow night, by the way, my ex-wife, Ronnie, is going to be with us. So that should be interesting as well. In fact, we've already done it, so I can tell you it's interesting. Anyway, it's time now for us to go to the phones, or not the phones. That's an old expression. That makes me sound old-fashioned. You were going to go to the phones. No, we're going to go to the Skype, actually. If you don't know what Skype is, go to gabnet.net. And over on the right-hand side of the page, it will tell you everything you need to know about Skype, which will allow you to call this program. It'll also give you a phone number that you can use to call this program as well in order to be able to access it just using the way your grandmother would. The difference is that when you use Skype, we can see you. The difference is when there's Skype and we can see you, you can raise your hand when you want to talk. When you're calling on the phone, you kind of have to jump in and kind of make a little bit more room for yourself than you would have to do if you were using Skype. Skype is very easy to use, very easy to install, and it doesn't cost anything. How those people make money, I have absolutely no idea. I do have an idea, though, of how this guy makes money. Rob has an actual paying job.
How about that?
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah. Oh, you're okay. We're okay. Let me see here. Phil's calling in now, which is good because you're a little out of sync. Always the first person calling is out of sync until. Hey, Vernon Nunn is calling. Boy, all of a sudden we're having a gang reunion here. Hello, Phil. How are you?
Just fine.
Yeah.
I think. Wait a minute. I think
that's enough to make me. That's enough to make me. That's enough to make me hang up on you. I'm serious. I'm serious. That's not funny.
Of course, it's funny. You just got done talking a half hour on the shootings, and I come in, tell you to duck. They're after GABNET.
It's not funny.
All right.
It's just not. It's not funny.
All right.
I mean, it's a very serious problem, Phil. We had a great discussion about it the other night, and part of the reason why I think it was great, and I'm not putting you down when I say this, was that you weren't involved in the conversation, because it became a very serious, focused discussion about what we are in America and what we're becoming and how do we stop this sort of thing. And if you were here, it would have changed the whole tone of it. So I was glad that, in a way, you weren't here the other night. Not that I don't appreciate your participation. Don't take that wrong. But
hey, no problem.
I think Scott knows what I'm saying, right, Scott? You heard it the other night.
Yeah, it was. I listened to it obviously on the replay. I wasn't there, but it was just very nice. Everyone talked amongst themselves. No interruptions. Nobody talking on top of everybody else. It was just very pleasant and very useful conversation.
Yeah, it was, and it was. I think one of the best programs we've ever done. To be honest with you, it was terrific.
Oh, you'll have another chance tomorrow.
Oh, good. What are you doing tomorrow night?
Another club meeting. I'm submitting another photo.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well,
yeah.
All right. I don't think it's very funny, Phil. It's really getting too serious. It's getting out of hand. It's just getting out of hand.
Well, if you can't joke about stuff,
well, you can't. You can't. This is something you can't joke about. You really can't. Would anybody here? Would you agree with me, Rob? Well, you can't. There's nothing funny about this.
Yeah, I'm not. We're past it. We're past joking about it. Really, when it comes time to talking about this stuff, we joke about Trump and all that. But when it comes to, we've got a whole generation of kids now who are afraid to go to school.
How about parents who are afraid to send them there?
Yeah. I mean, there's something wrong there.
That was something else we heard the other night. When Kevin the other night said, I'm afraid to let my kid go to school every day now.
Yep.
That said it all for me.
Did you see that video that I sent you this morning?
No, I didn't.
It had to do with the fact that they showed that each and every major shooting incident had to do with psychotropic drugs. And that was...
Okay. It may be bullshit. It may not be bullshit. But quite frankly,
watch it.
Quit trying to blame it on everything else.
Well,
yes,
you're blaming it on guns.
Rob. Yes, I'm blaming it on guns because that's what's killing people, Phil. That's what's killing them. That's what's killing them, Phil. Rob, say something.
I'll take what Phil said for face value. May be true. Possibly is true. That doesn't excuse the gun laws in this country that those kids or that these people on these psychotropic drugs are able to get a hold of these weapons.
Absolutely. I say that if you're on psychotropic drugs, that should be a disqualifier for you to be able to buy a weapon.
I agree. I think everybody agrees. Why can't it happen?
Yeah, if you're on these things, that it's no different than if you can't control.
Name me a psychotropic drug so I know what you're talking about.
Is Zoloft
all I know is Zoloft made me as unviolent as any human being you can imagine.
I understand, but what happens is people go on it and some people have different reactions, and then some people when they go off of it, have either suicidal or homicidal. But many.
Stop with that Scientology crap. Okay, you're speaking Scientology crap.
But these people.
Where did your little video come from? Where did your little video come from? Do you know? Maybe it came from the Russians. Maybe it came from the Russians, huh?
The Nazis. What it is if you're into these drug pushing doctors that would rather. Instead of somebody like Viktor Frankl, who solved things through man's ability to use his mind to overcome adversity, what these people do, these psychiatrists, is they dispense drugs. And then when it backfires and it turns somebody into a killer or a suicidal maniac, then we seem
to be having a lot of maniacs lately because since Newtown and Ray sent me the Times article on it. There have been 400 school shootings since Newtown.
Yes, and just like Will Durst said, some of them were misfires, some of them were, just...
there were 400 shootings. That's the statistic.
when I was a kid.
I don't care what it was. When you were a kid, all bets were off. All the rules were different.
Yes, because they didn't have all these rules. I remember a show and tell in 2nd or 3rd grade. I brought a gun to school. It wasn't loaded. And, they passed it around. Everybody looked at it. If I would have done that 2 years ago or 6 months ago, they shut the school down.
We've been joined by Ray Renati. Ray, thank you for sending me that article from the New York Times. It was pretty illuminating, actually.
You're welcome, Alex.
Yeah, let's see your face. There we go. Yeah. Was I quoting it pretty well? 400 shooting?
Yeah, it was 400, but I looked at it. It was from a number of years ago in that first shooting. But that's why Will couldn't believe the number. But it was from a shooting like about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, but that's still,
it wasn't just.
It's still.
Just a couple months ago.
Ray, you watched the thing I sent you.
Hold on a
it was
second.
a bunch of propaganda, Phil.
No,
oh yes, it was.
In
Absolutely.
1966, the shooter that went up into the tower and shot, what was it, 19 people? That guy had just a hunting rifle. It was a single shot. You cranked the thing
Charles
back.
Whitman. I know. I was in Texas at the time.
Yeah,
I'm going to have a hard time on this call because I saw the thing. It's propaganda. And Phil, when you talk like this, I just can't tolerate it. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to have to hang up because I like you, Phil, but you're not using your head. Okay. Well, I'm sorry.
But
I mean, it's just completely illogical. The stuff they found some doctors that told some stories.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people are saved by psychotropic drugs every year from killing themselves and killing other people because they are so freaking depressed? And then you have a few people who have these urges, and then even a smaller amount that act upon them. A super, super small amount. And this video made it seem like everybody who takes psychotropic drugs is insane and is going to shoot everybody.
To begin with, Ray, Rob has his hand up. Rob?
I'm going to tell you from my experience with antidepressants and talking to doctors about depression that they are so quick to try to get you to chew tablets. And it is true. I am
on one. I've been on one for 35 years. I took 5 years before I even started taking it. I had to take 6 medicines before I found one that worked.
How tough is it to get off of them? I had a rough time.
Super hard, but I will of it. Look, I've been on it for 35 years. It saved my life.
Okay, I was on Zoloft for about 2 years. Okay, and I one day decided to stop taking it, and I stopped taking it, and it was just fine. No problem.
I had either a really low dose because I was on and off them 3 times, and each time I went through. Each time was actually longer a period of crazy, horrible side effects from. Even trying to wean myself off it the right way, I vowed I will never, ever take another one of those drugs
There was
again.
a period of time where I think it was life-saving for me.
Me too. I was in a bad way.
Yeah, I was in a bad way too. But I think that what happened was after a while I began to see that it made me less aggressive so that my air style changed and the ratings went down. And when I came to New York, I was still using them when I was out of work, and I was still using it. And I finally decided to stop taking it because I wasn't aggressive enough to go find a job.
It's true.
So I needed the aggression that not being on that drug gave me. But I will say that when I took it, when I really needed it, it was a lifesaver for me.
How old were you when you were taking these?
I was in my 50s.
Okay. Do you think that giving school-age kids these kinds of drugs is the right way to deal with their problems?
It depends how
bad.
bad.
I've had to give it to my son, and it was the only way that he could get through, and it worked when he was in school, when he was in high school. And if he hadn't taken it, I don't know that he would have gotten through. Yeah. It was the right decision. Absolutely.
What did we do, in the 60s and late 50s and the 60s when they didn't have this stuff? And, I didn't see that the kids are shooting up schools.
You can buy assault rifles.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to obviate you're dismissed. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Phil, shut up. Phil, you're trying to dismiss the one factor in all these shootings that existed. And it wasn't pills, and it wasn't somebody doing this or that or whatever. One thing, they had a gun. Okay? So what we've got to do is, how did a guy, this kid had so many problems that he was in a school for horrible children. He was in he was being followed by the police. I mean, everybody knew this was a bad kid. And somehow he was able to walk in somewhere in Florida and just buy a gun.
Yeah, should have been able to.
Yeah, but
no, he shouldn't have been able to, but that's what we're talking about, Phil. What do we do to prevent him from being able to do that?
It's an issue, I think, because what's happening is that nobody is reporting these incidents. And, you know, although when it came to the police and all the contacts that they had, the police failed, the FBI failed, all of these people failed, and they failed us. They failed those kids in Florida.
And you know something? And the state of Florida failed their people by allowing those guns to be promiscuously sold. And today they had a chance to do something about it, and they decided that they weren't going to take a vote on trying to clamp down on like assault rifles, not on pistols, on assault rifles.
I don't think that they are being promiscuously sold. I believe that the systems that are in place are not being properly used. And if they were, and that Trump says that he wants more background checks. He wants better background checks. And he's even today said these bump stop things. He's putting a temporary
forget
ban.
about the fucking bump stocks. You know, that's like saying, you know, I'm going to do this, but that's not going to solve the problem. Okay,
it's a beginning.
No, the beginning would be for him to say, hey, there's no reason for any American in their home or on their person to own an assault rifle.
I don't agree. You see, when people came back from Vietnam, they used and Korea, for instance, they used M1 Garands.
Okay.
This was the gun that they were familiar with. When you come back from Afghanistan or Iraq, you've had hundreds of hours of training on that type of gun.
Get used to a fucking pistol, Phil.
Well, even the pistol that I carry is
right.
what
Listen,
I
let everybody else here talk a little bit here, because I want to spread the wealth around. Bob, you just joined us. What is your thinking?
The whole problem, like you said, is the availability of these guns. And, you know, those kids went to the House of Representatives or whatever it was in Florida today to bring out their point, and basically the Republicans there told them to go fuck themselves.
Yep.
What was the vote? They voted today.
They voted.
Like
they voted.
71 or some crazy number, 34, 31 to 70 something.
How many people crossed the aisle on that vote?
Probably nobody, because nobody crosses the aisle anymore. That's half the problem of this society.
Yeah.
Yes, Bob.
Also, this bullshit about Trump and bump stocks, that's just him placating and trying to do something to sound like he's doing something, because in the end, he's going to do nothing.
He's a phony. He was a gun actor. He was a gun back in 2000. He was for gun control, but he knows if he wanted to get elected, he had to get on the NRA's good side. He doesn't believe in anything. Nothing. He believes in whatever will get him elected.
Not Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio is in the pocket in the NRA from Florida. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen from Florida? Yes, Ray.
Well, Trump's campaign received over $35 million from the NRA, just FYI. Mm-hmm. I looked it up.
Whose?
Trump, his campaign. Over $35 million.
And Obama and Hillary, how much did they get from?
What the hell does that have to do with anything?
You know something. I'm gonna call you on this, Phil. Wait a minute, I'm gonna call you on this because what happened is John Oliver I was watching one of his older shows, and he said one of the things that the Trump people and the right-wingers like to do now is this thing called whataboutism. In other words, you bring up something that's a salient point and it's important to discuss. You say, well, what about what Obama did? But that has nothing to do with the discussion, Phil. What it has to do is what's being done now.
How much money have all of the Congress and the Senate, the House, been given by Big Pharma? You know, I think 35 million.
But again, that is whataboutism, and it has no basis for it. It has nothing to do with the conversation, Phil.
Yes.
No, what you're doing is you're trying to divert the conversation into whataboutism.
Well, my belief is that it's caused by drugs, not guns. Your belief is it's caused by drugs, by guns, not drugs.
It's not about beliefs, Phil. It's about facts.
Well, I have facts.
You're
but
going on
no, you don't.
video.
No, you
Phil.
don't. You have fake facts.
Propaganda.
You have fake fact. I didn't. Did you? Hold on a second now, Phil. Be quiet because I want everybody else to get a chance here too. Ray, you watched the video he's talking about, right?
Twice. Yes.
Tell us about it.
Okay. The video is made by some company, by a website called MDs or Bad or something like that. And I went to their website. All they do is talk about psychiatrists and all the bad things they're doing with drugs. That's all it's about. Nothing else. Okay. They found some psychiatrists that talked badly about drugs. They talked about how the first thing they think about when they hear of a school shooting is, what drug was that kid on? They found a few psychiatrists who are against drugs, and they put them on there, and they interviewed them, and they sprinkled their interviews in, might have been out of context, you don't know. And they showed all these shootings over time, and they said that these psychiatrists said, well, I think all of these people were probably on psychotropic drugs. There was no proof of any of them being on psychotropic drugs. They just said it was hidden by the media.
Oh, it's
okay. And it's also that, there are millions of people saved every year by psychotropic drugs. I know that for sure. And there's a small percentage of people.
Also, obviously, this was a biased documentary that was trying to cut out any answers that wouldn't fit the narrative they wanted to portray.
Yes, and there could have been other influences, like what if the person hadn't taken any drugs? They might have been more violent. What other influences did the person have in their life? Is this kid so delusional that playing video games, first-person shooter, maybe that was the thing that did it? Maybe it's the video games. Why can't you blame the video games? I mean, there's so many things you could say that it was other than drugs.
Yeah,
you could blame it.
I mean, to just say it's drugs is ridiculous. You know, it's gun. If you got rid of the guns, even no matter how berserk they went, they couldn't shoot anybody.
You can blame a ton of things, whether it's drugs, whether it's the video games. The bottom line is, I could go to the Dulles Town Center and usurp any kind of rules and buy a gun and walk out with it right there.
Me too.
Those are the things that are fucked up. So this is what I'm saying. It's easy to get a gun. It should be hard to get a gun. That's all.
It's difficult to get a gun. By the way, it's difficult. It's difficult to get a gun in
the country.
It's difficult to have a gun in New York City. And last year, I think New York had the lowest murder rate they've had in years.
Yes, but it's still a lot higher than many other places.
No, it's much lower than a lot of cities. Certainly lower than Chicago, that's for damn sure. But it was quite low. They were almost aghast at how low it was here last year.
Yeah, and I listened to Dr. Laura, the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I listened to her the other day. She was all pissed off about this, and she was blaming the FBI. And she said it's the FBI's fault. She said if you ban guns, people are going to build bombs, or they're going to go in there with pipes, or they're going to go in there with knives. First of all, go in there with a knife. See how far you get. You're not going to kill 15 people. Second of all, same thing with a pipe. Not easy to build a bomb, okay? It's not easy. It's tough to build a bomb. Or they're going to drive cars into buildings or do stuff like that. That's not the same kind of thing as going in with a weapon and just wiping people out.
You can go to almost any. Oh, you're going to go to almost any gun show in America and buy guns.
Yeah, I was shocked. Wouldn't you see the weapons that I could have walked out of there with?
Oh, not in California.
Well, that's what it should be in every state.
Although Ray said, didn't you say that you could, you researched it and that you could go in and buy a gun in 30 minutes?
Yeah, there's a shop in San Carlos. They had that gun on sale on their website, the same exact gun. I could have gone down there and bought it.
What do you mean, the gun that the kid used?
Yes, that assault rifle.
What state?
California.
What?
I'm so confused. I thought we couldn't do that.
I thought you couldn't do it either. Did you ask if there's a waiting period?
No, I didn't.
Bob?
Maybe there's a waiting. Maybe there's a waiting period, but I mean, what do you got to wait? A couple weeks?
30 years, I think.
Bobby,
do they do a psychological, do they do a background check on you?
There's some sort of background check that's done with the Department of Justice. It's not psychological.
Yeah, but
have we had any school shootings in California?
Bob had his hand up.
Yeah.
Let me go to Bob. Bob?
Sorry.
There's all this bullshit now about the FBI failing. Does the FBI have enough people on their payroll to follow every single person that's getting sent their way?
I think I'll tell you something, Bob, and then I'll go to Rob. I think you have a good point there. However, yes, the FBI was remiss. I mean, they dropped the ball on this one, but so did everybody else. I mean, there were family members that dropped the ball. There were a lot of people that saw this coming. In fact, there were kids today who said, when the guns started going off, we knew exactly who it was.
Well, if you're a Trump supporter or a Republican right now, bashing the FBI is what you want to be doing. In the end, a background check is only as good as the data that is to check. And if agencies like one of the shootings that happened recently, the guy was ex-military. The military never reported that guy. So you're only as good as the data that you have, right? It's not the FBI's fault necessarily. It might be in some cases, but what I'm saying is it's only as good as the data that's there.
Well, the FBI was supposedly given straight facts on this guy, and I guess they did nothing with it.
Tip line, that's correct. Somebody who knew this kid was worried. Yeah. He heard him say a couple of times.
The guy, what happened? The kid. Wait a minute. The kid had written on his Facebook page, "I want to be a professional classroom shooter," or something to that extent.
School shooter, yeah.
And school shooter, and he reported that to the FBI, and the FBI took the information. Now the question is, what happened after that point? If you're the FBI, you just don't go out and arrest people because somebody said something on a Facebook page. You got to fully vet it before you deny somebody their constitutional rights. Wait a minute, let me finish, Phil. Can I? Do I have your permission?
I'll think about it.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is that they were in one of those positions where, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. This kid isn't the only thing they're dealing with. But what I hated was Trump, who came up with the feeling that the reason why this kid slipped through their fingers, why they slipped through the system, was because they were too busy going after him on Russia. Which is stupid because the amount of people who are on the Russia case have nothing to do with going after kids like this.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I have your permission? Okay.
Yes.
If they would have said something like this on Facebook about Trump, there would have been an investigation. So if somebody would have made a threat against Trump, for instance, it would have been followed up and it would have been treated as a credible investigation. I don't see any reason why these kinds of threats, and people know you don't yell fire in a crowded theater. You don't.
Phil, the question is, and I think it was brought up by Bob Eberth brought it up, and that is, we think of the FBI. Oh, it's got billions of guys working. No, they have a finite amount of people working, and the question is, how do you delegate those sources? And what do you consider credible threats, and what don't you consider credible threats? This is a situation in which you look back at the FBI, you look back at the parents, the adoptive parents, you look back at the school people who knew about this kid, and you go woulda, coulda, shoulda. But that doesn't mean these 17 people aren't dead.
They knew there was 19 contacts with this kid and law enforcement. and that all his teachers, many teachers didn't even want him in the school or in their class, and he was wasn't he suspended?
Yeah.
Or
no, he was sent to a school. He was sent to a school for disruptive children. He was sent to a special school where they deal with these kind of kids. You know.
Well, they clearly dropped the ball. They fessed up to it right away. They dropped the ball. That doesn't mean that we don't have problems in this country with the laws that are on the books surrounding firearms.
And yeah, it comes around again. All these various things point to only one object, and that's a gun.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, that is the weapon of choice for killing people.
The FBI tip line. Supposedly, there's about 200 FBI agents that work that. It's a separate building, and they get about 2,000 tips per day. So yes, they're getting a lot of information. But something like this is, and especially since it's been seen in so many multiple places, warranted follow-up. And for them to fall on the sword, I think they were right in doing it.
Again, it's woulda, coulda, shoulda. Yes, Bob Eberth.
How many of those 2,000 tips they got are just as valid and just as scary as that one kid?
I don't know. But, just to give you an idea what the ratio is between people answering the phone, taking the tips, and the amount of tips that are coming in, that's why I brought it up. I don't know how many of them are valid.
Well, I just think that what we're doing is what we always like to do, and that is when there's a problem, certain people in this country, most of them Republicans, have a tendency to blame the victims. And that's really what we're doing here. I mean, let's face it, these kids needed protection. They need it now, and they need to be heard. And they're being told by the state of Florida, sorry, we don't want to listen to you.
Hey, Phil, are guns more important than these kids' lives?
Yeah.
All these school shootings, starting back with Virginia Tech, Newtown.
I don't think, I don't agree with the original premise that the center focus is guns. I think it's something else.
What is it?
I said drugs.
No. Now you see that's a diversion, Phil.
This is my opinion based on the things that I've read, and don't think it's propaganda. I think that it's people.
Yeah, but you read
selectively.
You read selectively. You read selectively and read those things which feed into your own prejudices.
Well, when you try to fight the psychiatric lobby, you're fighting something with millions and millions of dollars, big pharma, all of these things. They're there. They're making a lot of money on this stuff. I'm sure it's helped.
And what about the gun manufacturers? And what about the NRA?
I'm not saying that they're not as complicit when it comes to trying to influence the lawmakers.
Okay. So just happened. In the meantime, more kids will die. More schools will get shot up because there's this face-off between gun lobbyists and the pharma lobbyists, right? So let's just let it sit because everybody's getting paid, everybody's getting rich, everybody's getting their campaigns funded. In the meantime, we've got kids that are dying in school.
One other thing before for instance, all of you, if you were asked to turn in, if you had a weapon, an AK-47 or M16, AR-15, if you were asked to turn it in by the government, I am sure every one of you, including me, to a man would turn it in. If the law of the land was turn it in, I turn it in. Do you think that the bad guys out there that are running around in their cars shooting up the neighborhoods, do you think they're going to turn them in?
They all drive around in cars shooting up neighborhoods.
Well, if you lived in Oakland,
not everybody lives in Oakland. Bob Eberth, yes.
We're getting into that bullshit of the good guy with a gun.
Yeah. Yep.
I think
Let's have 3 guys with guns at a school shooting, and the police come in. Who the fuck do they shoot? If all the 3 good guys have guns out.
It's just what I said in the promo that you made, Alex.
Yeah.
Just give everybody a gun. Put guns in classrooms, give every kid a gun, let everybody be armed so there'll never be another 17 massacre again. Just give everybody a fucking gun. That's the answer then?
There should be school authorities, whether it's a school cops or something like that. They need metal detectors. But I interrupted Vernon. He had his hand up a long time ago, and
Vernon.
They have pharmaceuticals in other countries, Phil. They have crazy people in other countries. We're the only civilized country on the face of this earth that has all of this gun violence.
Okay, Vernon,
period.
There was a school in Russia that they shot up. I think 200 kids were killed. It was shot up. We're not, in Russia, do you think most of those people are allowed to own guns? They're not even allowed to own books.
To begin with, tell us exactly about that
That's
situation, Phil, because I think
Phil.
I don't.
This is happening as an epidemic
But what school was that, and what was the situation? Because I don't remember a school being hit.
Yeah, it was a school. It was about 4 years ago, and I don't. Those Russian names of those towns and cities.
I think that happened to be an opera house where it happened, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it was a school.
Let me see if I can look it up.
Well, you'll find something. Russian school, 200 people dead. You'll find it somehow.
Well, in 2004, there was a group of Islamic militants that took over a school and held everyone hostage.
Yes, but
it was Islamic militants.
Oh, okay.
They were Chechen.
They were Chechens, and how they got killed. Wait a minute. How the kids got killed wasn't by the Chechens; it was by the Russian police.
Yeah, because they invaded,
running in and getting them.
Yeah.
Well, do you think?
Okay, so you're wrong about your facts, Phil. You're wrong about your facts.
They weren't sitting ducks. They're sitting ducks there. And
it's sad that they have to go to maximum security school, like prison.
Well, they have had to do that in the inner cities for a long time.
Yes. This is the world you want to live in because everybody has to have a gun. I'd like to know how many times that good guy has used the gun to stop murders instead of the other way where the bad guy shoots up 17 people.
I agree. There are statistics out there. They're very hard to find.
We've been joined by get a little more in the center of the picture there if you can.
Hold on.
Because you're at the edge picture and you get cut off a little bit. Yes, Renee's joined us. Yes, Renee.
This is not against Phil. It's against everybody who thinks like Phil. Let's do this. Which I want every NRA member to say, which child do you never want to hear from again on your cell phone? Which kid of yours are you willing to give up for a piece of metal? Now, if I open my phone, you will still see all of Marty's contact information in there because I can't bring myself to take it out.
Yeah.
I'm not a mom. I didn't give birth to anything, but I can tell you now, those mothers and those fathers are going through a hell you people don't ever want to see. So my question to you, which fucking kid of yours can I call to say that you never want to talk to them again? There's your gun, Phil.
Right on.
Bravo.
So, look.
Which kid are you going to give up?
Emotionally charged thing. But, here you have one guy out of 7 or 8 that has a different opinion. Now, you've disrespected my opinion.
I absolutely disrespect your opinion. There's nothing about your opinion I can respect, Phil.
Well, there has been a lot
of... That's the same as saying, well, it's not time to discuss this right now. That's what they say.
I was the first one to play the gun shots.
Yeah, it was very funny.
Yeah, it was.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. There was nothing funny about that.
I thought it was disgusting.
Yeah.
So all of you people who, and I'm gonna, I guess, to the gentleman in Palo Alto, Ray, and anybody who's ever been on an antidepressant, they don't just give them to you, and you don't go through the first one perfectly. Ray said it himself. He had to go through many. just to find the one that works for
I had to
them.
go through 2 or 3 until I got to Zoloft, which worked for me. Yes.
So the bullshit that the NRA is trying to sell you about, it's the drugs.
Vernon,
no, you don't just hand out drugs like that and say, go away. Matter of fact, my insurance company won't let me won't let me take antidepressants without the talk therapy component.
Yeah.
It's required.
Vernon has his hand up. Vernon.
This argument about the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Yeah.
Well, in my city last summer, a young man had just returned from his honeymoon with his 20-something wife, and he was accosted in a very nice section of our city by some young thugs. And as the young thugs were running away, he whipped out his weapon, being the good guy with a gun, and shot at them, and they turned around and killed him.
I guess he missed. But
and yet you make another joke about it, Phil.
That was actually had a gun, and they killed him, and he killed him, right? There was a security guard at this high school.
Yeah, what I also believe about the drugs is that they give the drugs to these kids, and then they reach a certain age, or they don't.
You take something like the drugs, and you just hammer away at it. No, because it's not. It's the only argument you think you have, and it's a pretty flimsy one because it doesn't get to the core of the problem.
You see, the core of the problem for you is you think it's the guns. I don't think it's the guns.
I think it's the gun mentality in this country. Okay.
Nice, Vern. I like that. Vern's going ape.
By the way, Bob's had his hand up, and I know I'm going to lose all feeling to it.
Gun control is pretty simple. If you have to cock it to shoot it, it's fine. If you can hold the trigger and it kills 19 people, it's not fine.
I think that's a good. That's a decent assumption. You know. I mean, personally, I don't like guns at all, and I wish there were no guns at all. Scott, you haven't been saying anything. Anything you want to say about any of this?
Well, everyone thinks that this kid was mentally damaged, right?
Yeah.
Had a mental issue. And Phil says, well, it's because he was on drugs. Well, I'm just saying it's a good thing that this kid wasn't Muslim, because everyone would have said, oh, he's a radical. He's a terrorist. This kid was just a terrorist. That's all he was. He was a terrorist. He was a white supremacist, and he killed a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. He's a Republican. He's a Trump supporter. That's what it is. He's a terrorist. He's not mentally ill. He's not on drugs.
You're right. If he was a Muslim, they'd call it an act of terror. Because he wasn't a Muslim, they don't call it an act of terror. You're absolutely right about that, Scott.
I would like to say that the reason the NRA is actually trying to pick this the mental health component of this is because they know, or somebody should know, you should all know this, that mental health is a component of healthcare. And since we have no healthcare, having a conversation about mental health and guns is ridiculous because those people who need mental health help can't get it because we don't have health care. So it's another one of those things that the NRA is just throwing out there so that it'll go chase your tail thing.
Rob's got his hand up.
Wasn't it one of the first things that Mr. Trump did when he entered the White House was to repeal the mental health rules that Obama put in place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Allowed to have guns.
Sure.
So you call it mental health, but if you're not going to help people who have so even your own argument is flawed in that, oh, it's mental health, but we don't want to pay for mental health.
That was part of his abomination of America, in which he attempted to just undo everything, no matter what it was that Obama did. And one of the things he did was exactly that kind of law, making a heavier background check for mental stability to have a gun.
Yep.
And Donald Trump, one of his very first things, signed it out.
So when the Republicans say stuff to you guys, I want you to ask them which kid they're going to they want to say goodbye to for the rest of their life. Ask them that. Which kid are they willing to give up because they think their gun is so much more important?
Yep. Yep. Ah, boy. I mean, this is, the other night, Tom Yamaguchi wrote us and said, boy, this is a great show. I wish we had more like this. And I said, no, I don't. I wish we had a boring show every night because we didn't have this kind of thing to discuss. But it's a discussion that, we're yelling about it now. Those kids in Florida are yelling about it now. There are some people in Congress who are yelling about it, and it'll go on for about another week, and then we're back to the same old shit, right?
I'm not sure it's going to be that way. I'm really hoping that these kids are just.
Well, the kids may.
I call bullshit.
Well, the kids may be our savior in this whole thing. That the kids may just start a movement in this country if they say we're going to Washington. Every other kid in America, join us in Washington. I think you might start seeing kids going to Washington and holding a demonstration, and that would be very effective because you're seeing kids do it. You're not seeing a bunch of adults doing it.
Did you see the report on CNN tonight about they had two kids on one of the kids' names Hub or something like that. Hob. He was on being and the right wing is saying that they're actors.
They're saying they're actors?
They're calling them tragedy actors or.
I call bullshit.
Yes.
It is the wackiest thing. And you know who liked the tweet? Donald Trump Jr.
Phil has his hand up.
I try to find something that gave a reason why Trump signed the bill that allowed this mental health thing. And you can parse anything anyway.
It's an executive order, Phil, not a bill. Executive order.
Yeah, I don't care what it was, but
no, but you should care what it was because there's a difference between a bill and an executive order.
This is a regulation that potentially deprived 75 to 80,000 people on their right, not based on what they had done, but on the basis of being classified by the government in a certain way. The fact that these people have impairments did not inherently mean that they were dangerous to themselves or others and needed to be kept away from guns. Huh?
Who wrote that?
Trump
certainly didn't because
it's in free minds and free markets.
You'll go looking until you find something that will agree with your.
CNN, if it's from CNN, it's not going to be pro.
All I'm saying is you keep looking for stuff online that will justify your misguided feelings. Yes, let's let Tom Yamaguchi say hello.
He did it because Obama did it.
Right. The black man did.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Look at the record. Look at the record. Yeah. Hey. Tom Yamaguchi just joined us. Sensibility has entered the house. Yes, Tom.
No, anger is. I really wish you'd stop taking my comment out of context. What I had written was actually, I appreciated the fact that you actually had a participant who was there as a part of the event and could report about what he was saying, had nothing to do with the actual subject matter. Of course, I don't want to have.
I wasn't even implying that you wanted that. No.
Well, that's what you were saying.
No, what I was saying is that you said that this is really a great discussion. There should be more like these. And I just was simply saying, I hope we don't have to have another one.
That was taking it out of context and really misconstruing what I was saying.
Well, I didn't want to do that.
That wasn't my intention. I'll tell you, what I really believe is the really value of these panels is the potential for someone who's in an area where there's a news event.
Let's explain to Phil.
Share their personal.
Let's explain to Phil because he wasn't here on Friday night. But we had a guy who lives 5 miles from that school call the show.
Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Jerry, and I really appreciated his input. And as I said, I really like to have more shows like that instead of someone coming in with half-baked opinions. That really have nothing related to their own personal experience. This is the kind of show I want to have more of. I think I'm going to go ahead and hang up. I just wanted to.
Well, listen. I don't want you to be mad at me. I don't want you to be mad at me because I wasn't trying to. I wasn't trying to misrepresent you. I was just trying to make a point.
Well, that's what actually happened.
Well, please let me apologize to you. Then.
I wanted to set the record straight. But anyway, I'll let you guys go back to your conversation, okay? And I'll call again another night.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks for calling. All right.
All right.
I didn't want to misrepresent him. Apparently, he thought I did, so I don't feel good about that. But what the hell? Anyway, yes, Bob.
I live pretty much in the middle of nowhere. I'm in upstate New York in a village. And on the news here the other day, the nearest town that I can go shopping is 15 miles away. It's called Pulteney, Vermont. And one of the kids in Pulteney was planning on a shooting. And from what I understand, some kid in New England caught it on Facebook, turned him in, and they were able to stop that shooting. But that shooting would have been 10, 15 miles from where I am now.
Yeah. So, I mean, so some of these things don't fall through the cracks.
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to say. Were you, by the way, Renee, were you trying to call from another?
I was trying to show you the sunset, but it didn't work.
Yeah, no, it won't let you sign in twice, I don't think.
Well, the other day it worked, but I don't remember what I was working on. So the other statement is Phil, you scared little monster, you. The United States government doesn't deem you mentally ill. They're not qualified for that. A doctor has to say whether or not you need medication. So no, desk pushing person can say that you're ill and can say that you don't get a gun.
Well, then maybe that's why Trump signed that thing to law. Well, not into law, but made, what did you call it, Vernon?
It was an executive order.
Executive order.
An EO.
By the way, any of those things can be overturned if you want to take him to court. I mean, the fact that he writes an executive order just means he says it shall be so. And then, of course, we've had a lot of executive orders that recently have been overturned by courts. So.
Oh, and did you see that the United States Supreme Court will not hear the California law with the gun restrictions on it? They said it stands and fuck you, NRA.
Oh, really? Why?
We have a 10-day hold period. I just looked. It's only 10 days.
Yeah, but the reason for that, I would imagine, on the part of the Supreme Court is states' rights, right?
Yeah.
I don't. So, and this is another thing. This is another piece of crap that the Republicans put out. I don't think that that your little brats in the state of Montana deserve less protection than your little brats in Virginia. So the deal is this is not a state-by-state issue. This is a national issue, and this is what the kids are trying to get across. And the other issue is how many all of these, what the NRA is saying, you need to put up metal detectors, you need to get security guards, which, by the way, that guy killed, and you need to do X, Y, and Z to make your kids safe. Guess what, NRA? That should come out of your pocket. Those metal detectors, 3 for every school, sure, you paid for them. The security guards for every school, absolutely, you paid for them. Let the NRA put their money where their mouth is and run like little fraidy cats that they are.
I'm just, I said the other night, and it is appalling that the people are more protective of their guns than they are of their kids.
Yeah, that's what it's.
That's really what it becomes. It is, and we are, we're the only country in the world that feels this way. I mean, we're people in other countries are scratching their heads at our behavior.
How about Switzerland?
What about now? See, whataboutism. There you go with your whataboutism again. You're going to fight an argument. Switzerland has nothing to do with us.
Every citizen in Switzerland is issued a weapon
because they didn't have. There's a reason for that. Do you know what the reason is, Phil?
That's their military.
But because they don't. Because they are the biggest fucking liars in the world. They have said we don't have a military. But what they do is everybody is armed so that if they have an insurrection that comes along, everybody can take up arms and go take care of it. But they don't have a military.
But they all have guns, and they don't have this problem.
No, but again, this is whataboutism. Also, Switzerland isn't America. Also, the mentality of Swiss people is different than the mentality of Americans.
No other
Phil.
country. No other country. I said, what about Switzerland? Every single citizen there is armed.
It's whataboutism.
That's
how you fight. That's how you fight your arguments all the time. Well, what about Obama? Well, what about Hillary? Well, what about Trump?
Well, maybe because Switzerland is doing it right. They're not stupid there like they are here.
What are they doing differently?
Obviously, they can be.
What are they doing differently? I want to know.
They don't have Republicans.
They educate their people.
What'd you say, Scott?
I said they don't have Republicans.
They're all Republicans.
But Bob Ebert said it right. They educate their kids. They to both through the younger years. They do the 4 years if they need it. They go higher than that. They are the leading smart people. Some of the leading smart people on the planet. They're the tallest people on the planet. It all bodes to intelligence, and we're probably.
Well, I think there's more to it than that. You know, somebody said that geography is destiny, and I think it's very true. And if you've ever been to Switzerland, Phil?
Yes, several times.
So you know that it's a different geography than here, and that it's not a very densely populated country. And there's a different. Wait a minute, let me finish. There's a different set of rules that takes place when you have a city like New York that's densely populated. People are going to go crazier than if you've got people living in the country. Yes, Rob.
So I have a couple of questions about Switzerland. Number one. Do people carry these weapons, or are they issued them in their home?
They're in their home.
Okay, so nobody's carrying. Number two, what age do they get these weapons? They're not born and the weapons given to them.
I think it's 18.
And they must have to go through all kinds of training, right, to get it.
Yeah, they do get training.
Okay, so we don't have any of that here.
We should.
Into that again. Should we can't pass anything when it comes to guns. As soon as you mention,
if tomorrow, Phil, if tomorrow you suddenly said, hey, well, everybody should have to have training and have to be insured and all of that before they can have a gun, which are things I think you would not disagree with, the NRA would fight that.
Right.
The NRA
would fight that.
Anything. Let me tell you what. I heard a thing from that LaPierre guy after the shooting.
If you're going to know who your gun Hitler is, you should know how to pronounce his name.
Well, anyway, he said that he doesn't care, what they say or they try to do. He does not want one chink in the armor against guns, and that's his job as an NRA leader.
No, but it's not his job as an NRA leader. His job as any kind of leader of any group is to try and hit a moral high ground.
But he said there's no more reason to protect. The First Amendment is the same as the Second. You don't need to have insurance to have the First Amendment. The Second Amendment.
You have to have insurance to have a car. Yes. Hold on a second. Jack Bishop is just joining us. Are you there, Jack?
Yeah, right here, Alex.
Turn on your camera, would you?
Oh, let's see. I thought it was on. Let me. Oh no, it's not.
That's funny, Alex. You're trying to talk to Republicans about values.
Yeah.
We know where their values are.
Yeah. And also center your face a little bit, Jack, so we can see you better.
All right. How's that? Is that better?
No, you got to move the camera.
All right, I'll move the camera.
See, look and see where your face is. There. Well, that didn't do much.
Well, maybe if I do this, is that better? Because it may be a little high.
No,
but you can see me. That's good enough.
You look like Kilroy was here, just your nose and your eyes.
Like that for a month.
Huh?
It's been like that for a month.
Oh, yeah, because you call a show all the time, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. Now he raised his head.
Top of his head.
Right.
I don't care.
Anyway, what were you going to say? Who was saying something here?
Jack.
The thing that I find so amazing about this conversation, I'm probably the only person here that ever had a family member killed by an idiot with a gun. So I've got a vested interest in all of this because I had to stand over my 23-year-old nephew's coffin and deliver a eulogy about a kid who was getting off a bus coming home from work one day, and a 16-year-old boy shot and killed him. Now, Phil says, what about Switzerland? You know, we used to have a mental health safety net in this country. Anybody remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Pre-rape.
But
all hail the great leader of the Republican Party, Reagan.
He was a governor when he did that.
It doesn't matter. He was the leader.
He emptied out the mental hospitals. Yeah.
And it rolled across our country.
Yep.
And
remember in San Francisco when they rolled them out and they were walking like zombies up and down Van Ness Avenue.
The kid that shot my nephew was not a zombie, but everybody who knew this guy, including my sister, who at that time was working with young people, said we all knew he was disturbed, but nobody knew what to do for him and how to get him help. Because this happened not in the 80s, but in the late 1990s, early 2000s. And Phil, no, it wasn't gang related, in case you want to play that card.
I didn't say a word.
I know. I was going to say it for you. Get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way before he got to it.
Look, you know.
I didn't figure Jack's relatives were gangbangers.
No, but you probably figured the kid who shot him was.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
No, look, you know what our literacy
kid with a gun.
You know what he stole the gun from out of his father's bureau drawer.
And his father should have been held culpable. I believe
not with the laws that we had then and not with the laws that we have now.
Look, wait a minute. Phil, quit blaming everything except for the fact that the problem exists. I mean, you're trying to avoid the problem by so-called shooting around it with whataboutisms, with, he probably did this, and the father shouldn't have done that. Hey, all these are woulda, coulda, shouldas. The fact is, what can we do to stop this from happening?
I'll tell you what we can do. Bullets should have a micro registration in them. You can only use a bullet once. Once it goes through, it gets deformed. But there could be, just like they do to diamonds, like this little macro
Can I
number,
ask you a question?
number.
How much would that add to the cost of a bullet?
I don't think it would add much anything.
Who cares? But
what good would it do?
And by the way, if you made people use bullets with a tracing device on them, then only the good guys would have bullets with tracings on them. Can I say that?
You could load your own.
Yeah, you could load your own.
Even if you load your own, you get the bullet itself. You don't mold it yourself. Those are the days when they were doing muskets. Now you buy the bullet, you have the casing, or you buy the casing, or you reuse the casing, you put a primer in it, but that bullet can have a tracing number that is registered to the person who bought it, and that would make more personal responsibility.
How practical is that, Phil?
It's practical enough that it would save lives.
No. The issue is this is a post issue. I mean, we're trying to keep the kids from dying as opposed to tracing the bullets to find out who killed them.
You guys don't really care what the gun lobby would do to make guns safer. You just don't want it.
No. Let's hear it, Phil. Let's hear it.
You have an agenda.
Your gun lobby won't support that.
You know what I haven't heard once from Phil tonight is, I'm just really sorry for those 17 people who are dead.
Of course I am.
No, but you haven't said it.
Phil,
you haven't even indicated it.
I did the other day.
No, you didn't indicate it, and in fact, you obliterated it by that sound effect that you played at the beginning of the show.
So sorry, all you snowflakes got.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, my God, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
You have kids, right? I got a kid in high school. Phil, I gotta go.
No, don't go, Ray. Ray, don't go.
All right.
You're a voice of
It's really hard
sensibility.
to hear these people who have children. It must be difficult for them to hear the fact that their neighbor thinks that their gut metal is more important than their offspring.
Yeah. Let me say something to Ray. Let me say something to Ray. Ray, let me say something to Ray. The reason I don't want you to leave is you are a voice of sensibility, and I like having you here.
Alex, thank you. And I like Phil. I just don't get it. I can't understand what it is. I feel like
listen. I've known Phil for more years almost than I've been alive, and that's I'm a friend of Phil's. I like Phil. I know Phil personally as being a very kind, decent person. That is not the way he pulls himself off on this show. And sometimes I want to just say, go fuck yourself, Phil. In fact, I do. But I think that there are times like when he played the Bullets at the beginning of the show that he loses all sense of what is proper and what isn't proper. And I think he's a better person than that. And that disappoints me, Phil.
All right. Well, sorry that it offended anyone. Really, it wasn't my intention to offend. It was my intention to create a little levity in a time when everybody is so emotionally charged.
There are times in which levity is asked for as a matter of relieving the burden of the stress and the pain you're feeling. But this is not one of those instances. This is not one of those cases. And believe me, I'm the first guy to be indulging in bad taste when it comes to something like that. But yes, Jack.
Phil, there's no levity, no satire in a dead kid. It's, No,
and maybe it's my graveyard humor. As a cop, you see things, and sometimes if you don't joke about it.
But how long has it been since you were a cop, and how long?
20 years.
All right.
You do something for 20 years, 40 hours a month for 20 years, you find that there are certain things that people do just to keep their sanity. And
let's talk about Switzerland for just a moment.
Sure.
Do you know what the average literacy rate in this country is?
It's low.
God. About 75%. Costa Rica, which is a third world country, has a 94% literacy rate.
Well, I don't want to go and blame
will you let him finish his thought?
Sure.
And you just said that Renee and some other folks on this panel may be brainwashed because we have an agenda. You gun packers have an agenda too, and don't lie about it.
No, of course. I have an agenda. I use my argument. You guys have an agenda. You use your argument. You'll never listen to my argument. And you know what? I'm not going to listen to yours.
I'm willing to listen to yours if it makes some damn sense.
But you'll use whatever you can to say that it doesn't make sense.
Yes, and I challenge you to do the same thing. Attack, and then we get up and we start the next day and we attack some more. There's scars enough to go around for everybody. But remember this, it only took one of these incidents in Australia for them to do something about it.
Yes, and that incident in Australia was not the Lindt chocolate.
Our crazies?
No, that incident in Australia happened in 1996, and that was not the Lindt chocolate. There was still a mass shooting in Australia, and that was the Lindt chocolate, and it happened years after all those guns were confiscated. It was Stony Point or something.
You as a cop know that it takes sometimes to get the scum off the street.
Let me put a little sensibility into this discussion. We have a great fear in this country about ISIS and about terrorism and about ISIS doing things in this country. And yet most of the mass shootings that have taken place in this country, most of the mass obliteration events that have taken place in this country make ISIS look stupid by comparison because ISIS isn't a factor in any of them. A few of them had to do with people who were influenced by ISIS, but they weren't members of ISIS. The fact is that we are the worst enemies of ourselves. We are the worst obliterators of ourselves, and we put these weapons in the hands of these deranged people who have easy access to them. The guy in Las Vegas had a hotel room full of these items. You know, it wasn't like he just went out and bought one. He bought a whole arsenal of them. Yes, Bob.
Up in the hotel.
The lady up in the corner there, she put up a sign that said facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our government is not allowed to study gun shootings because the NRA has bought out the Republicans. So we can't get any real facts.
Bob, I don't see that as a fact. That's your opinion.
No, that is a fact.
Yeah, where's this fact come from?
Well, the fact is the amount of money the NRA spent on all of these politicians over the last years.
Legislation says that the CDC cannot investigate gun fatalities and shootings.
So speaking of what Bob just said, when I went on Google for about 5 or 7 minutes while you guys were talking, I could not find any gun statistics past 2016. I couldn't find anything for 17 or 18, and that's on Trump. Those statistics need to be published, and I agree with Bob.
And I will say, Renee, that's true. I looked everywhere today, and I could not find anything in the last 2 years. It just doesn't exist.
Exactly.
There's nothing anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, and I went to 3 search engines looking for it, and not one of the data pulled back was anything other than 2016, 15, 14, or 13, and that was it. So Bob is correct. We're not getting this information.
Correct. You are correct, but it seems that Congress extended a ban on CDC research on gun violence, and this was done back in October of 2015, long before Trump.
But while the Republicans had Congress.
Yeah, but you can't blame Trump for something.
We're not blaming Trump.
We're not blaming Trump. We're blaming the Republicans in Congress.
Congress and the NRA. The NRA used to represent gun owners, and it was hostily taken over by radicals.
Yeah.
That happened
now
quite a few years back.
Put it this way, if enough people feel as you do, and not just you, Bob, but everybody here, they would make a way of changing the Constitution and eliminating the Second Amendment.
No, they won't. You're full of crap. I call bullshit.
Now, with the women's movement, it was very close to becoming a constitutional amendment. And if you want to change the Constitution, there are ways of doing it. But right now, it's the law of the land, and what the NRA is doing is they're protecting.
First of all, the Second Amendment, Phil.
Let me say
the Second Amendment does not protect individuals from owning guns. But it says a well-regulated militia.
Let me say that it is a very badly written amendment. Okay, because wait a minute, hold on a second. Can I finish what I am saying, please? It is a very badly written amendment, one that should have been rewritten years ago, that has been interpreted in any manner of ways by different Supreme Courts. There was one in 1935 that said it's a collective right, not an individual right, and then the Supreme Court turned around at a later date and said it's an individual right, not a so.
But isn't that the last one?
No, but it's badly written. And the fact of the matter is there is a codification, there is a qualification clause in that amendment that says in order to maintain a well-ordered militia, then you can have the guns. Well,
I'm all for not having every individual get a gun just because they want to, but it is the law, and it is their right.
It is a question. It is a law. It is a law that probably will once you get a bunch of left wingers in there, will probably reinterpret the Second Amendment all over again.
In 2009 and 2010, for 4 months, Obama had had both the House and the Senate.
For how many months? How many months?
He couldn't change it because the Republicans blocked everything. They filibustered everything.
That's right.
Well, they could have used the same deal that the Republicans did on the.
Jack has his hand up. Here.
Phil said something that I got to say I agree with.
What?
Yes. I mean, you know, I almost had the heart attack that I didn't have 7 years ago. But Phil said that it's, you know, that if enough people felt that something should be done, it'll get done. And I point this out to you, Mr. Myers. These 15, 16, and 17-year-old kids in 2 years are going to be able to vote.
Yep. That's good.
And as they move through the society, having, in some cases, been scared out of their little cell phones, don't be surprised if they're not real serious about changing some of this shit that we old folks
if the law of the land
to change.
If the law of the land changes, I'll be the first.
Well, the law of the land, as I see it, isn't that you can have the right to bear arms.
Say that again.
The law of the land, so far as I see it, as far as I read it, and I can read like anybody else, doesn't say that I can. I personally have the right to bear arms. I have the right to bear arms as part of a well-ordered militia. I don't belong to a militia, neither do you, Phil, in spite of the fact that you say you were a policeman. That is not considered a militia any longer. Nobody on this panel is part of a well-ordered militia. They don't exist any longer. And the reason is because that Second Amendment was written for a specific time, and I'm telling you right now, if the framers of the Constitution were alive today, they would disagree with the way we're implementing it.
I don't agree with that.
And I've heard the argument made many times. Well, you had those months where you had a Democratic president, Democratic Congress. You forgot a little detail there. They were spending a lot of time digging this country out of a hole that was created by the previous Republicans. And by the time they got that worked out, they lost the House.
It took 6 years.
If really felt that this was the number one problem.
Number one problem was our banks were failing.
When the banks were failing, believe me, if a problem like the banks failing existed, the gun thing would take a second.
So the economy and money was more important to the Democrats.
No,
than
it was more.
saving children's lives,
It was more important to people who were losing their homes in this country.
Yeah,
you
had
may
people
remember
losing every day. You forgot. You wake up.
It took 6 years to keep us. Oh, good puppy! It took 6 years to keep us going into a depression. They fought really hard to keep us just in a recession. We could have easily slipped into a depression, and every one of you little fucking Republicans forget that point.
Did you hear her teeth clench?
Oh yeah,
I saw them. Yeah.
Phil, according to some, in 2008. We came to within 3 days of being in a depression.
Yes.
Now, you know, I'll tell you my own story. I bought some General Motors stock when it hit $3. I said, how the hell can GM go bankrupt?
Did.
You know, I thought I was going to be the brilliant member of my family with the stock market. I'm going to buy this stock at $3 and it's going to rebound. Hell, even if it only goes up to 10, I've done better with that than I did with my Sirius stock when I had it. But what happened? Lost all of that money because we were just that close to going down the toilet.
What happened to your Sirius stock?
I got out of it before it got flaky.
Well, you see, I mean, I wish I'd bought it at 5 cents.
I went through.
That's nothing.
I went through $700,000 in equity due to that 2008 recession.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
there were concerned about your stock portfolio.
It was cash.
Also, up until that point, if I remember correctly, and my dates may be all wrong and screwed up, all we had up to that point was something like Columbine. Before that, we really didn't have this school shooting thing going on.
Sandy Hook was 2012.
Yeah.
There was a lot of them. If you look at that, no matter how much propaganda you think it is, that did have dates and it did have schools.
Well,
did have the name
we've
of the
had
shooters.
18 of these school shootings this year.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech happened before I moved down here in 2007. I wasn't listening.
Sandy Hook was December 2012.
Yeah.
We've had
Sandy Hook.
18 mass shootings since the first of the year. Now, obviously, we're some sick puppies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We are.
You know,
We're not
Too
well.
many people walking around with warm noses and not
But it
listening
used to
to
be-
the
But-
section
but-
coming up in 6 minutes.
How many people went into post office employees, and shot up post offices when it was the
No,
thing of the
there
day?
were a couple of postal employees that did that, and then we came up with the term going postal, and so
And
you
then they
thought
stopped.
every postman was carrying a gun and going to kill
Then-
somebody.
there were a whole bunch of workplace things besides post office.
There've always,
That's
there've
it.
always
We-
been those kind of things, but not on the mass extermination level of, say, this school the other day, or Sandy Hook, or the gay nightclub down in Florida. I mean, or what went on in Las Vegas. You're talking about some guy who goes in, shoots a gun, kills maybe a couple of his employees, maybe his ex-girlfriend and her boyfriend, and runs away from the scene. But we're talking here about
WAB in and that stands for what about in Paris when they had that concert with I forget the name of the gal that was
Ariana Grande.
yeah. How many people died in that bombing?
I'm trying to remember now.
It was very low.
It was quite low.
There was a lot of people in the hospital, but the actual death number was.
And the guy they captured in Belgium who bombed another venue like
Again,
that.
let's talk about us. I'm talking about our neighborhood and us. Okay,
Well,
and we're not. And what you're doing is
And
you're
he's
constantly
talking about terrorism.
He's talking about terrorism. This was not terrorism
And
because the
we're
kid was
over
not
here
as
having
our
our kids shooting kids.
But that's all terrorism.
This
Don't you
wasn't.
think
This
that
act
is a-
wasn't terrorism. It was
Then
because
why
he
aren't
wasn't
we doing
Islamic.
something about the white terrorism? Because
That wasn't
we should be, but President Trump and his toadies have taken white supremacists and the KKK off that list of investigation
I think
because
that's
it's more
Russian
important to
fake
go
news.
after goddamn ISIS.
I think that's Russian fake news that was planted by their
Bullshit.
the Russians have been planting stuff and they've been dividing this country.
Not according to Trump.
2015.
Not according to Trump.
Phil,
But
I'm
according to
72
Mueller-
years old, and this country's been divided all of my life. It's just a
According to
matter of how
Mueller-
we choose to divide it.
To the
Yeah.
God Mueller, he has made these indictments against these 13 Russians because he says that what they were doing was they were planting divisive information on Facebook, taking out ads, pro and con to both Hillary and Trump.
And your point is, what does this have to do with what we were discussing?
It has to do a lot with it because what's happening is that we're being invaded.
I told you that. You wouldn't listen to me. What is wrong with you people?
Your president doesn't want to act upon it.
Yeah.
Some people think the world is flat, but
It's not
based
flat.
on this
It's
information,
coming.
based on this, I didn't want to act on it before either, but based on this new information, I have a different opinion of what's going on with the Russian interference.
Yeah, well, that's an argument and a discussion for yet another day, because this day is kind of like come to a close. Oh boy, I'm exhausted. This is.
But you're supposed to be.
Yeah, right. I just like to come in here and just have some fun with some friends. That doesn't.
Oh, you better get on the intersection then.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate it. We won't see you tomorrow night, right? Okay, the coast is clear, Tom. You can call. Vernon, thank you so much for calling. You've been terrific tonight.
My entry for tomorrow.
Yeah, and Ray, what did you just send? What?
I said in Morse code. I said bye.
Oh, I said okay. Ray Renati, God bless you. I love you. You know, keep calling.
Thanks,
you make
okay.
this panel great. Same with you, Renee. Good to have you here. Rob, you know it's always a pleasure. Scott has disappeared already. Bobby Berth, thank you so much. A lot of comments from you tonight, and really good for the discussion. Good show, everybody. Give a big wave goodbye to all the folks out there who are watching, and we'll see you hopefully again tomorrow night. That's it for our citizens panel. That's it for what we're doing right here tonight. Let me just clear off the lines here so that Jack can use them for the intersection, which is next over most of the same station. By the way, at 1 o'clock this morning, it's Connections. So that's the whole lineup. I'll be back again tomorrow after Damian Chaplin is on at 9:30 with the Exchange. At 10 o'clock, same time, same station in life. And in the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye.